you think that there should be some action against Doordarshan, All India Radio, and the Sunset TV as well? Now, the bureaucrats who are handling the program, was it not their duty to inform the PMO, to tell the PMO officials that, look, this is a transgression, this is a violation, we can't go on air? But they also unabashedly went on air.
No, it is very difficult to blame the officials because you don't know what the Prime Minister is going to say. Now, when the Prime Minister says, I want to address the nation, how do they know?
But it was a pre-recorded speech. Sir, it was a pre-recorded speech. It wasn't live.
I would put it this way. If they were really aware of the contents, and if there is a bureaucrat who is committed to the Constitution and the law of the land, he would have said, no, it cannot be done. I mean, there were instances in the past.
You remember during Indira Gandhi's times, it was pointed out very clearly that she misused the resources and ultimately, she was dislodged from power. So in this particular case, is the case almost similar? If we are using Prasar Bharati, if we are using Doordarshan, Sunset TV and All India Radio for a 29-minute speech where you are lambasting the opposition in the middle of a model code of conduct, is this not misuse of resources?
Absolutely. If I were to decide, it is certainly outright, blatant misuse of public resources. There is no doubt about that. But then ultimately, it is the Election Commission which has to come to a decision on this.
Now, is this a fit case, in your view, Mr. Sarma, to remove Prime Minister's address to the nation from all websites and media platforms?
Well, if the Election Commission of India is true to the letter and spirit of Article 324, they should. If they agree that there is a violation of Model Code of Conduct, well, it's up to them. We cannot prejudge what they are going to do, but they have not responded to our letter at all. At least they should have made a statement, or in their website they should have placed a letter and said this is a speaking order. There is no violation of the Model Code of Conduct. They have not said. See, they have got a responsibility. They got accountability to the public, and they have to pass an order on this.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Over 700 citizens, including former civil servants, academics, activists, and journalists, have written to the Election Commission alleging that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's national address on April 18th violated the Model Code of Conduct for elections and sought an inquiry as well as remedial action. Now, in a complaint dated April 20th, addressed to the Chief Election Commission, I would like to show you the copy of that letter, which is signed by 700 citizens, lawyers, and journalists, as I said. And Amina, if you're there backstage, so this is the copy of the letter I was talking about. And in this complaint, which is dated April 20th, addressed to the Chief Election Commissioner, the signatories claimed that the address broadcast on official platforms such as Doordarshan, Sunset TV, and All India Radio amounted to electioneering and partisan propaganda during the MCC period, that is a Model Code of Conduct period. Now, the MCC is currently in force in Assam, Kerala, Puducherry, where voting was held on April 9th. Tamil Nadu goes to polls tomorrow. West Bengal goes to polls tomorrow. And votes will be counted for these assembly elections on May 4th. Now, the complaint said, and it's very important, the complaint said that the use of government-funded media for such messaging gave the ruling party an undue advantage and undermined the level playing field essential for free and fair elections. Now, citing provisions of the Model Code of Conduct, the complainant said that the ministers are barred from combining official functions with electioneering and from using official machinery for partisan purposes. The letter has urged the poll panel to take cognizance of the issue, examine the content and the manner of the address, and initiate appropriate action. It also called for equal airtime on public broadcasters for other political parties if prior permission had been granted for the telecast. Now, amongst the signatories are former Delhi LG Najib Jung, political economist Parkala Prabhakar, activist Yogendra Yadav, economist Jayati Ghosh, musician author T.M. Krishna, former Union Secretary E.A.S. Sarma, activist Harsh Mandar, journalist Paranjoy Guha Thakurta, academic Zoya Hassan, and former ambassador Madhu Bhaduri. Now, these are some of the names which are prominent and who have signed this letter. Others also include like Anjali Bharadwaj, and the list is very, very long. And as I said, there are 700 citizens, lawyers, journalists, activists, and former bureaucrats who've signed this letter. But are we going to get the real honest answers? What has been demanded in this letter? Is Election Commission going to take cognizance, or will we see it passing off as any other violation of the Model Code of Conduct, especially when it is related to Prime Minister Modi? Joining me this evening is former Secretary to the Government of India, Mr. E.A.S. Sarma, who's also one of the signatories to the letter. Thank you so much, Mr. Sarma, for joining. And we had done a program on HW News yesterday where we spoke about the privilege notice which has been sent to Prime Minister Modi by K.C. Venugopal, Congress General Secretary Organization. But I want to talk to you in detail about the letter which you have written. The various provisions, I want to talk about them one by one. And what is the hope? We should be optimistic, but given the past record of the Election Commission, especially when it comes to the violations transgressed by the Prime Minister himself, we've seen that no action has been taken so far. So I want you to talk about all these provisions one by one. Yes, sir.
The speech given by the Prime Minister immediately after the Constitution Amendment Bill failure in the Parliament, he is the Prime Minister. All the resources of the government are at his command. And usually Prime Minister's addresses are on major policy issues, calamities, war, national emergency. But then to take advantage of this situation, especially when the assembly elections are on, when the Model Code of Conduct is in force, for the Prime Minister to attack the opposition, and that too, only the opposition parties of those states where elections are going to be held, I think it certainly violates the letter and spirit of the Model Code of Conduct, because it is using unfair means, in my view, to influence the minds of the voters. Now here, he has actually broken a convention, in my view, because in the past 7 decades, I have seen many prime ministers addressing the nation. As I said, they're always on major policy issues or some important war situation or calamity. But here, he has taken advantage of this address to take undue advantage in the elections, assembly elections. I think that's not correct. Now, more important is, there are 2-3 things, in a speech like this, what he said is one thing. What he did not say is equally important. I think we should, that's very, very important. For example, what did he not say? I mean, in all fairness, there is a history of women's reservation in the parliament. 1989, I think Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister, 69th Constitution Amendment Bill for reservation of women in Panchayat Raj institutions. Actually, it was passed in the Lok Sabha but failed in the Rajya Sabha. Then 73rd, 74th amendments, Constitution amendments, where actually they provided 30% reservation for women in local bodies, elected local bodies. And the whole lot of letters written by different political parties that's been going on because the representation of women in the parliament has remained very, very low. And all political parties equally were worried about it. So he ought to have mentioned that. He, by not mentioning, I think he has misled the nation. One. Second is, after all, the population of women in this country is 50%. So the vision should be 50% seats reservation in the parliament. So in a constitution amendment bill like this, you could have given a vision saying slowly we'll move towards 50%. He did not say anything about it. If he's so worried, if he thinks that he's a champion of women, he ought to have mentioned. He did not mention it. And in fact, I was worried because in such a far-reaching constitution amendment bill, which linked women's reservation with the delimitation, I'll come back to that. I mean, there should have been a public discussion, a wide public discussion. In fact, one minute, sorry. See, in a like this, there could have been public discussion. So one of my friends told me just now before this interview that he got this one nation, one election bill for his comments. Obviously, they're moving very selectively. Even that also, public should be told. In fact, such an important bill, it should have been given to every panchayat in this country. It should have been placed in the public domain, and people should have been asked to comment on that. Without that, as though there is urgency, a special session, and then without giving all the details, suddenly there is a discussion. I think that was not fair. It's undemocratic. In my view, undemocratic. Now, the other thing is, whenever you talk of women's reservation, you cannot avoid reservation for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and OBCs. It's very, very important. Now, strangely, delimitation, the population basis is 1971. Because if you move away from 1971 population basis, the pro rata balance will completely get upset. And many southern states and other states also, the representation of the parliament will go down. So the southern states are not very happy about it. So the delimitation part of it is the 1971 census. Whereas in women's reservation, if you want to give reservation to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and OBCs, the latest caste census, that caste census will come shortly. That should be delinked and then it should be dealt with that. So I don't know why they linked up these two, either to confuse people, I don't know. But that was not correct. Now, the other important thing is the Prime Minister ought to have mentioned in his speech. See, you are giving tickets to candidates to contest elections for the parliament. How many tickets have you given for women? I mean, that's a very important thing. Hardly 12%, 13%. I got statistics, 2014, 2019, 2024, hardly 20%. You're not given that. Then the next one is, why do you give tickets to candidates who have self-declared court cases for offences against women? You're given. In fact, there are 54 or so candidates in the current parliament. And you have those were candidates for BJP. And why did you give them tickets at all? And there are people who have declared in their affidavits that there are cases of rape against them. Whether they is proved or not, why do you give tickets at all? If you are such a champion of women, why did you do that? And I was looking at the National Crime Bureau record, 2014 onwards, the crime against women has increased by about 30%. What have you done on that? So these are all issues. I'm not blaming anybody.
Yes, sir.
So what he did not say, in a speech of this kind, you concentrate on attacking the opposition. Your entire thing is on attack on opposition. You use words like feticide of the idea of women's reservation, which I think is not on. So this kind of a thing, while doing this, that speech, especially by somebody like the Prime Minister, the senior most elected leader of this country, to say that it's highly misleading. So that's the reason we felt that this is a violation of the Model Code of Conduct. And
yes, Sarma, now I want to go provision-wise the demands which you have made in the letter, because that's an important one. And now the demand number one, which you have said, is that the said address was telecast live on official government mass media platforms, including Doordarshan, Sunset TV, and All India Radio, which are funded by the public exchequer. Now, this is the first point. Do you think that there should be some action against Doordarshan, All India Radio, and the Sunset TV as well? Now, the bureaucrats who are handling the program, was it not their duty to inform the PMO, to tell the PMO officials that, look, this is a transgression, this is a violation, we can't go on air? But they also unabashedly went on air.
No, it is very difficult to blame the officials because you don't know what the Prime Minister is going to say. Now, when the Prime Minister says, I want to address the nation, how do they know?
But it was a pre-recorded speech. Sir, it was a pre-recorded speech. It wasn't live.
I would put it this way. If they were really aware of the contents, and if there is a bureaucrat who is committed to the Constitution and the law of the land, he would have said, no, it cannot be done. I mean, there were instances in the past. In the past, where they said no. I remember when Mr. Seshan was election commissioner, he put the fear of God in the minds of all these politicians. He said, you cannot take the Constitution lightly. So I remember, one minister in Andhra, he wrote down advertisements and all that of his election campaign on walls in Warangal. And he said, go and wipe out and clean them completely. There's no question. So it's a question of tolerance. So when we have written to the Election Commission of India, in all fairness, if the Election Commissions, in the trust reposed by the public, in the credibility of the electoral process of India has to remain, the Election Commission should take it very, very seriously. They should inquire into this objectively, without any
No, but
bias.
when the inquiry is done, if at all a proper inquiry takes place, do you think that there should be some kind of a censure against Doordarshan and Sansad TV and All India Radio?
I think censure against Doordarshan is a minor thing. I think they should take action against the person who has delivered the speech.
Yes.
Sometimes what they do, they prohibit the star campaigner to enter, to undertake any further campaigning. I mean, there are many ways of Election Commission asserting its authority. Unfortunately, I don't know whether they will do it or not. But then our letter also should be looked at in a different way. When 700 people have written, concerned citizens, it's a message to the nation. I think the whole idea was to generate a public discussion on this. People should discuss everywhere. Is it correct?
No, but that's a very important point you made, that the message has been sent out. If 700 people and responsible citizens of the country are writing about it and the Election Commission is quiet. But I want to talk about the fact that is this not equivalent to the misuse of resources? You remember during Indira Gandhi's times, it was pointed out very clearly that she misused the resources and ultimately, she was dislodged from power. So in this particular case, is the case almost similar? If we are using Prasar Bharati, if we are using Doordarshan, Sansad TV and All India Radio for a 29-minute speech where you are lambasting the opposition in the middle of a model code of conduct, is this not misuse of resources?
Absolutely. If I were to decide, it is certainly outright blatant misuse of public resources. There is no doubt about that. But then ultimately, it is the Election Commission which has to come to a decision on this. And, for example, Election Commission, if they decide otherwise, in my view, the trust of the public repose certain trust, the trust will come down in the credibility of the Election Commission of India. I think they should realize that. They should ponder over it.
Right. Your letter also says, and I'm coming to the provisions which you have pointed out, and that very clearly says that one should take cognizance of the complaint and initiate an inquiry into the contents and the manner of the national address delivered. Who do you think will have the guts to examine the contents and the manner of the national address?
See, the Election Commission, 3 people who are very senior people, retired bureaucrats. After all, there were instances in the past. Mr. Qureshi was there, Mr. Session himself was there, Mr. Lingdo was there. They set an example. So if they really want to, they can, institute an inquiry into this, into the whole process, and say whether Doordarshan, some of the media houses are responsible. But the person who delivered the address, to what extent is he responsible? Is there misuse? Is there any undue influence on the minds of the voters in the election? Would it have an adverse impact on the integrity of the electoral process? I think these are all things on which they should inquire. Right. If they really wish to. If they don't, I think their credibility will come down.
I want to come to the second point which you have demanded in the letter, that examine the transcript and the telecast of the address in light of the above quoted provisions. And I'll just go a little further, where you said that issue appropriate directions and take necessary action against the violation so as to uphold the sanctity of the electoral process and ensure a level playing field for all the political parties. Who do you think again is going to do that? Will there be a committee constituted for this?
No, I think Election Commission, see, if they want to have a committee, again, they should have a committee of independent people to do that. Every sentence of the speech, the transcript, should be taken and then put under a microscope. And then the test is, does it violate the MCC Model Code of Conduct, letter and spirit? Does it adversely impact the minds of the voters unduly? Because it's all being done on government-funded media houses. So they have used government resources. So I think that is where I think the Election Commission of India, if they really want to, maintain the credibility of Article 324, their role, they should do that.
Another, which is a very, very important point and which people have not spoken about, and that is why I'm going point by point to the provisions which you have mentioned in the letter. And that is, you have said that inform us of the action taken on this complaint at the earliest. How hopeful are you, Mr. Sarma? Because you've written letters and dimes and dozens to the Election Commission, where Election Commission has just not responded to any of your letters. How hopeful are you in this particular aspect?
I'm not very hopeful because my past experience is that these election commissioners rarely respond. But I can give you one example. I think election commission, each member should listen to me when I say this. I remember I wrote a letter to Honorable Speaker of Lok Sabha, Mr. Somnath Chatterjee, once, where I drafted a legislation defining the powers of the Speaker. When there was a cash for questions, allegations were there, I actually drafted a legislation for him. So when I wrote the letter, he didn't reply. So after 20 days, I wrote him saying, look, you are not replied me. Are you not accountable to the people of India? You believe it or not, I got a call from his office and Mr. Somnath Chatterjee invited me for a cup of tea in Delhi. I went and sat with him. Then he said, look, this issue is very, very important. I'm going to hold a roundtable conference on this. He held a roundtable, I think 3 rounds of roundtable. I was given an opportunity to express my views. These are ways of any constitutional authority eliciting trust of the public and then creating credibility for themselves. And if an institution doesn't do it, well, they will lose that public credibility. I think this is something which everybody should listen in this case.
Right.
I wish there were more Somnath Chatterjees in this world.
Absolutely. And also, I'm coming to the last bit of the letter which you all have written, and that's very important. I'm just reading that out. Further, if the said national address was delivered with the prior permission of the Election Commission of India, then equal time on the national media should be provided to other political parties to present their points of view. Now, I'm just going to take the example of Doordarshan. Let's talk about DD News, how the anchors over there speak about the leader of the opposition. Just 4 or 5 days ago, there was an anchor on Doordarshan who said that the leader of the opposition, Savarkar ke pair ki dhoan bhi nahi hai. This is the manner in which an anchor of Doordarshan speaks. So do you think they're going to give an equal time to the leader of the opposition, sir?
Actually, Dr. Ambedkar, when he presented the Constitution to the Constituent Assembly, he delivered a brilliant speech. Actually, one paragraph he says, Bhakti in religion, I don't know whether it will give you salvation or not, but Bhakti in politics is dangerous because Bhakti in politics leads to landslide victories and dictatorship. And dictatorship actually weakens all institutions. This is Dr. Ambedkar's words. So what happens is, see, when prior permission, for example, strictly speaking, if there is a very tough election commission, very credible election commission of India, even probably the Prime Minister would go to him and say, look, I want permission because I'm going to. That didn't happen. Now, the second thing is whether permission is given or not, something has happened, some speech is delivered. Even whether we write or not, if there is a good election commission of India, they would suo moto on their own, take the transcript and then look at every sentence and then question it. That has not happened. We had to write to them.
Sir, at the very outset, one needs to inquire whether PMO took the permission of the Election Commission or not, or it was just a suo moto decision by the Prime Minister's office that, come on, let's do a telecast.
Yeah. You see, again, the Prime Minister's office, credibility of the Prime Minister's office. I remember when Mr. Devegowda was Prime Minister of India, there is a remarkable secretary to Prime Minister, Mr. Satish Chandran, a bureaucrat. And I remember when Mr. Devegowda was invited by a minister, as Chief Minister of one of the states, to inaugurate a power project. I was Secretary of Power at that time. So Mr. Satish Chandran telephoned me and he said, look, would you recommend it? I said, no, because that power project is not cleared. The Prime Minister should not go and inaugurate that. So Mr. Devegowda cancelled his visit. Here is a Mr. Devegowda Prime Minister who selected a very good secretary to Prime Minister of India and who really discharged his responsibilities. So that is something which, PMO's credibility is very important. That's why I feel a speech of that kind, in my view, it is very ill-advised. Whoever has written that speech, I think it has not done a good job of that. And it is an ill-advised kind of a speech because it violates a long-term convention of the way Prime Ministers have given addresses and all that. So this is something where Election Commission of India should look into that if they really want to establish their credibility, even at this belated stage. I think they should look at every sentence of that transcript and take action. They should order an inquiry, in my view. Prima facie, there's a violation of the Model Code of Conduct, in my view.
Right. But I'll come to the last bit of the letter where you have said that if the permission of the ECI was not taken, and it does constitute a violation of the Model Code of Conduct, then ECI should immediately order the removal of the speech from all official records, the government websites, the media platforms, and take other suitable deterrent action for the violation. Now, is this a fit case, in your view, Mr. Sarma, to remove Prime Minister's address to the nation from all websites and media platforms?
Well, if the Election Commission of India is true to the letter and spirit of Article 324, they should. If they agree that there is a violation of Model Code of Conduct, well, it's up to them. We cannot prejudge what they are going to do, but they have not responded to our letter at all. At least they should have made a statement, or in their website they should have placed a letter and said this is a speaking order. There is no violation of the Model Code of Conduct. They have not said. See, they have got a responsibility. They got accountability to the public, and they have to pass an order on this.
It's very evident that the Election Commission has blundered, or either the PMO has blundered. Now, we do not know whether the permission was sought, whether the permission was not sought, but yes, a televised address happened in the middle of a Model Code of Conduct, which is a gross transgression of the violation of the model. I mean, it's a gross transgression of the Model Code of Conduct. Now, if at all, if this blunder has to be atoned by the Election Commission in any way, what is it that they can do? Can they just ask for the removal of the Prime Minister's speech from all the websites and the media platforms? Is that the first thing they should be doing?
If the Election Commission of India has come to a finding that there is a clear case of violation of Model Code of Conduct, one, they should remove the transcript from everywhere. Two, they should take action against the person who has delivered the speech. As far as the assembly elections are concerned, as a star campaigner, they should pass an order. There are instances in the past. There were instances. Now, I would be very pleasantly surprised if the Prime Minister PMO had asked for permission, prior permission. I would be very pleasantly surprised if Election Commission of India considered and gave a permission. These wouldn't have happened, because from what we see in the last few years, unfortunately, the old conventions are dying away.
But if you were to take the decision, sir, we do not know what Election Commission will do, but so far, we've never seen Election Commission taking any sort of action against the Prime Minister. It's also the Speaker, where there are lots of question marks whether he will act against a privilege notice or not. Privilege notice against Prime Minister, it does qualify for a breach of privilege, but it's up to the Speaker's discretion. And so far, if you look at the historical records, none of the Speakers have actually gone against the Prime Minister. So if the Speaker of Lok Sabha cannot go against the Prime Minister, do you think Gyanesh Kumar, who's the present CEC, will order the removal of the Prime Minister's speech?
Well, it's very difficult to predict what this Election Commission is going to do. But as I said, I'll be very pleasantly surprised if they take action. Because and similarly, if Somnath Chatterjee were there, probably would have gone into this in great detail and he would have passed an order. So I will be pleasantly surprised if, something happens. So in these cases, what happens is, as repeatedly I'm saying, these are all messages to the nation. Our letter and the privilege motion, people of India should discuss. Ultimately, people are sovereign. They are over and above the Constitution. They are the people who, we the people who actually approved the Constitution. I think they should really discuss and debate. And then that should come out as an outcome in the electoral process, in my view. Absolutely. But then we must not also forget that there is a Constitution of India, there are law of the land, and there is a Model Code of Conduct. Election Commission is the constitutional authority. If the Election Commission doesn't respect that, then the public will lose their confidence in that constitutional authority, which is very unfortunate.
I'm glad that you all wrote a letter to the Election Commission, and point-wise, beautifully it has been explained where and how the violations have happened. And you've also suggested solutions. So that itself, in a way, is a very, very big message. Now it's up to the Election Commission to act. It's up to the Speaker to act. So we'll have to wait and watch whether at all any action is taken.
I would just like to add one thing. While this was going on, I found that the 3 election commissioners, they have not disclosed their assets and liabilities. See, if you see the electoral process, every candidate who contests has to file an affidavit declaring his assets, liabilities, criminal antecedents and all that. When you are asking the candidates to do that, the least that the election commission, all three members should do is that they should disclose their mobile and immobile assets. So I've written a letter to the President of India very recently, just about 2 days
All
ago,
right. Yes.
requesting that to ensure that the three election commissioners disclose their assets and liabilities every year for the public to see. Because after all, the entire electoral process is based on the pillar of transparency.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that that is something that I was surprised that they have not declared. Right to the information commissions declare their assets. Every public servant is supposed to declare his assets, and every candidate is supposed to declare his assets and liabilities. Why not the election commission? In fact, they should have done it on their own. I'm really surprised.
In fact, that's a very important point towards the end, which you pointed out, that none of the election commissioners have disclosed their assets, which they should have done long time back. And why does it need prodding? Why does it require Mr. E.A.S. Sarma to write a letter and then only they do it? But will they do it is the question. Thank you so much, Mr. Sarma, for joining on HW News.
Thank you very much.